there were two census that were taken, and the people were counted twice in this book. Once when they were before they entered the promised land while they were at Sinai, and second time after 40 years, they when they were going to enter the promised land, the next generation was counted. So there were two census, and the thing about these two census are that the people who were in the first census were not present in the second census. God had destroyed them in the wilderness. Only Joshua and Caleb were present for the second census. Uh, that's why this book is called Numbers, because it's when it was translated to Greek, they put the name arithmoi, which means from where we get the word numbers, but the Hebrew name is in the wilderness, and we know why it is called as in the wilderness. Then we saw that I'm just thinking which we saw the rebellions. We did not see everything. We just saw the overview of the book. We saw the rebellions the people did, and then we saw why this book is important and how this book has been referred in the New Testament multiple times. And we saw that it is mentioned that this book was, these things happened to us, to them for as an example to us. So the New Testament writers use these incidents in this book, the punishment that the people received, the rebellions they did, as an example to New Testament believers to guard their faith, to guard their walk. Okay, so they used this, the book of Numbers, for that purpose. Then we saw the rough division of the book. Roughly, the book can be divided into three themes: details of first generation, then the wanderings in the desert, the rebellions and how the first generation perishes, then the details of the second generation, where the second census is taken, and the instructions to enter the promised land is given to them. So roughly into three parts, we can divide the book. Now, for today's study, there is some part that I would like to revise a little more in detail, because that would be useful for today's passage that we are going to see. So we saw the census was taken of all the tribes except the tribe of Levi. Okay, the Levitical tribe was excluded from the census. Okay, they were numbered separately, and they had a slightly different rules for numbering. So the first census was a military census. Of all the 11 tribes, the census that was taken was a military census. Every male who was capable of going to war, okay, they were counted. So women were not counted, children were not counted, older men and women were not counted. Okay, and in the in the conference, Pastor Simon had done a little bit of calculation, and he had told that if we counted everyone, it would be about 2 or 4.2 million people in the wilderness. Okay, so God was providing food and water to 4.2 million people in the wilderness every single day. So when the Levites were counted, uh, there were three groups within the Levites. Okay, Levi was one of the sons of Jacob. Here, Levi is one of the tribes of Israel. And within that tribe, there are three groups or three subgroups. First one, because Levi had three sons, the three groups belong to the three sons of Levi. So the first one is Gershon, the second one is Kohath, the third one is Merari. These are the three families or the three sub-tribes under Levi. Okay, and there is another thing that we see when we read Leviticus and all, we see the priests. So who were the priests? We see that in Numbers chapter 18 and 7, it is very clearly specified that only Aaron and his sons were to be priests. Not all the Levites were priests. All the Levites were not priests. Only Aaron and his sons, only Aaron and his family, his sons were to be priests. Rest, all the Levites were to help in the tabernacle work and to carry the things of the tabernacle, to do the regular work of the tabernacle. And further down in history, they did that in the temple. So, three families within Levi, which are Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the priests were only Aaron's sons, but the priests also belonged to one of these tribes, sub-tribes. So we saw in Exodus chapter 6, verse 18 and 20, we saw that Aaron, Moses, and Miriam belong to the sub-tribe or family of Kohath. So they belonged to the family of Kohath, but only Aaron's family was allowed to be priests. So I'm repeating this again and again so that we will remember this. Now, later in Numbers chapter 3, we see that based on the family, God assigns different kind of works to each of these three families. For Gershonites, they carried all the fabrics of the tabernacle. So the fence was made of white linen. Then there was the coverings on the tabernacle. There were curtains. So all these fabrics were carried by the uh, family of Gershonites. So these are not, some of these curtains are not simple fabrics. They are few inches thick. So they are very heavy material. Okay. So the Gershonites carried the fabrics. The Kohathites carried everything that was within the tabernacle: the Ark of the Covenant, the table of shewbread, the lampstand, the altar of incense. All these articles within the tabernacle was carried by the family of Kohathites. And the Merari family carried the walls of the tabernacle, the boards and the sockets and the pillars and the cords that tied them together. All these boards and everything was carried by the family of Merari. And we also saw, so three families within Levi, each one had its different role in carrying the different things of the tabernacle. And further down, we saw that how the tribes were arranged around the tabernacle. So they are traveling to the promised land. So they will camp for some time, they will travel for some time. So when they are going to camp, God had a specific order about how they should be camped. So we had seen that formation, and it could be like this, with the tabernacle in the center, the Levites around the tabernacle, and the tribes further around them. Or there is one more formation which looks like the formation of the cross from above. Okay, so we could see four camps and how they were placed. So how this was arranged was the tabernacle was in the center, and the Levites, the Merari, Gershonites, and the Kohathites were on the three sides. And at the entrance of the tabernacle, the Aaron and Moses and the priest family, they had their tents. Then all around them, in the four directions, the 12 tribes were distributed in groups of three. Okay, so we saw how they were arranged around the tabernacle, and at some point I think I had also shown them their, yeah, so In the east side was Judah, Issachar, and Zebulon. South was Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. West was Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin. North was Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. So these, in groups of three, these tribes were arranged around the Ark of the Covenant, around the tabernacle. So this also we had seen in the last few weeks. So now the reason I am repeating this is because we saw how they were arranged. When we go further down and when we read about how they set out to the promised land, you will see that there was a specific order in which each of this each of these groups started their journey. So it was very orderly, very systematic, and that is why for those very specific reason, God had placed them in their specific positions. Now, in Numbers chapter 7, we read about all the offerings that the people gave to the work of God. Now, can we read Numbers chapter 7, verses 1 to 9? So this is also a repetition, only this part, then we'll go to the new part. Okay. So Numbers chapter 7, verses 1 to 9.
On the day on the day that Moses had finished the setting of the tabernacle and had anointed and cons- consecrated it and all its furniture and the altar and all its utensils, he also anointed them and consecrated them. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of their fathers' households, made offerings. They brought their offering before the Lord, 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, a cart for each two of the leaders and an ox for each one. And they presented them before the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to the Moses, saying, accept these things from them, so that they may be used in the service of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Levites, to each man according to his service. So Moses took the carts and the oxen and gave them to the Levites. He gave 2 carts and 4 oxen to the sons of Gershom according to their service. And he gave 4 carts and 8 oxen to the sons of Merari according to their service, under the supervision of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. But to the sons of Kohath he gave nothing, because they were assigned the care of the holy things which they carried on their shoulders.
Okay, thank you, brother. So we see that the leaders brought an offering. So they bought 12 cars. Uh, uh, they brought 6 carts and 12 oxen. So God told the Moses, accept this and distribute it among the Levites so that it will be useful for the service. Now, what Moses does is, there are 6 carts. He gives 2 carts to Gershon and 4 carts to Merari. And he distributes 4 oxen to Gershon and 8 oxen to Merari. But to Kohath, he neither gave carts nor he gave oxen. Okay. So the reason it is given is because they were carrying holy objects which they carried on the shoulder. So sometimes we need to, one of the things that we can learn from this is these holy objects are not very light. They are heavy objects. They are covered in gold. They are big, and they have to be carried on the shoulders of these Levites. And they are not given any help to carry that. The reason is because they are holy objects. So even in our life, sometimes when we do some of these ministries, we may find it to be very difficult, but the reason is because it is that much precious. Okay, so we need to remember that some of these ministries are difficult because they are that much precious in the sight of God. Okay, not that other ministries are not important, or the Meraris or the Gershonites ministry was not important. It is not like that, but some are, uh, some have a different perspective in the eyes of God, and He gives them certain positions, and that position carries with it its own level of different kind of difficulty. So that's one thing that we can see in how the gifts that were brought to the Levites were not equally distributed to the Levites. Now, in chapter 7, verses 10 onwards, we are reading about the gifts that the leaders brought to the Lord. Now, it is called as a gift or an offering. In Leviticus, we saw that an offering is voluntary. In Leviticus chapter 1 to 5, we saw about sacrifices and offering. We saw that sacrifice was mandatory, it was compulsory. Offering was not compulsory. Offering was voluntary. If people wanted, they can give an offering. It was not compelled. So the leaders gave the offering, and it is an example for other people to give offering also. And we can read Luke chapter 21, verses 1 to 4. And it says, Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And he said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. So we need to remember that God is watching what we are giving unto Him. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it is big or small. When we look at the offerings which the leaders of the Israelites brought, they brought gold, and they brought all were very costly and precious things to be given to the service of God. But in New Testament, when we read, Jesus was looking at the offerings, and he had more respect for the 2 copper coin which the widow gave than all the other precious things which the rich people had put in. So God values things differently. God values things differently than how we value things and how we value. So, so we need to remember it's not just about the material giving that we are speaking about, the time that we give to God, the energy that we are putting in, the effort that we are putting in, the sacrifices that we are making to maybe to do something even small in the house of God. God is watching everything that we are doing for Him, and He values it. He has a great amount of value for what we do. Now, chapter 6, 7, and 8, I think 5, 6, and 7 were about uh, giving to God and walking it whole in the Nazarite vow and all. We had already seen it. Now we'll go to the next one, which is chapter 8. And chapter 8 is the dedication of the Levites. So when we read about chapter 8, it speaks about before. So when is this happening? The people of Israel are still at Mount Sinai. They have not started their journey towards the promised land. God has given them the law. Moses has dedicated the tabernacle, and they have not started up the journey. They will start their journey for the first time in chapter 10 of Numbers. Okay, so chapter 10 of Numbers, they will start the journey. Till then, they have not started. They're still at Mount Sinai. So what we are reading in chapter 8 is something which we also saw in Exodus and Leviticus, of how the Levites were dedicated to the service of God for by Moses and Aaron. So this is something that I repeated before. the families of Levites. And the reason I repeated was because I wanted to stress the point that they were not all priests. Except for the family of Aaron, everybody else in the tribe of Levites were helping in the tabernacle. They were doing the other work. They were not offering sacrifices. They were assisting the priests. Okay. So they were not the priests. They were helpers of the priests. So when we read, let's read Numbers chapter 8, verse 5. So this is before God is speaking to Moses, and he's saying the Levites have to be dedicated to me now, okay, before they can start working in the tabernacle. And we're going to take a look at it. So Numbers chapter 8, verse 5. Can we read that?
Again the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take the Levites from among the sons of Israel and cleanse them.
Okay. So first step, remember these are helpers. These are not priests. These are helping in the tabernacle. They are helping in the temple. But what is the first step? Cleanse them. Okay. So without cleansing, we cannot even begin to serve God. Okay. There is no question of serving God without, having without being morally or spiritually clean. That's the very first step. Any other service, while given by not being in a uh, without being spiritually clean in the eyes of God, will not be considered as a service. The first step itself is to cleanse the Levites, not the priest, the helpers of the priests. So it brings to us, we can put in we can think of all of us. Okay, while the New Testament tells us that we are all priests before God, but we are all not in full-time ministry. We are doing things in the church. Somebody does some part, other person does other part. Okay, somebody may be doing something bigger, somebody may be doing something smaller. We are all helping in the house of God. But the first thing before we can do anything in the house of God is to be morally and spiritually clean before we can serve the Lord. Let's read Numbers 8, verses 7.
This is what you shall do not them to cleanse them. Sprinkle the water of purification on them, and let them use a razor over their whole body and wash their clothes, and they will be clean.
So I'm going to take only 2 points out of this: water of purification and razor over all over their body. So basically, before they go into the temple, how shall they be purified? How shall they be cleansed? Okay. One part says use razor all over their body. They have to shave their entire body hair. Okay. Remember, these are, Semitic men. These are Jewish men. They have beards and mustaches, and, and uh, these men are being asked to shave every hair from their body, completely clean, use a razor. And why? What does it signify? It signifies a childlike innocence. Come back to a childlike innocence before you come before the presence of God. Okay, come to a childlike innocence, and then you can serve the Lord. Okay, so that is one part. Secondly, it says use the water of purification. Now, what is this water of purification? We see about this in Numbers chapter 19. Can we read Numbers chapter 19, verses 1 to 9? It's a big passage, but this is what the water of purification is. Okay, so we can read that. Numbers chapter 19, verses 1 to 9. Again, remember, the helpers of the priests are being dedicated. Okay, so we can put all of us in that position. Okay, so Numbers chapter 19, verse 1 to 9.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, This is the statute of the law which the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you an unblemished red heifer in which there is no defect, and no which a yoke has never been placed. You shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and it shall be brought outside the camp and be slaughtered in their presence. Next, Eleazar the priest shall take some of his blood with his finger and sprinkle some of it toward the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. Then the heifer shall be burned in his sight. Its skin, its flesh, its blood, and its waste shall be burned. The priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet and cast them into the midst of the burning heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward come into the camp, but he shall be unclean until evening. Then who burns the heifer shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and shall be unclean until evening. Now a man who is clean shall collect the ashes of the heifer and deposit them outside the camp in a clean place, and the congregation of the Israelites shall keep it for water to remove impurity. It is purification from sin.
So it says they shall be kept for the water of impurity. This is the water of purification that is being used to cleanse the Levites. Now, what is this being said over here is a red heifer, okay, a red cow is taken, okay. It's not a male, it's a female. Okay, a red cow is taken, which has no defect in it. Okay, there is no blemish on it. It has not done any work. Okay, and that cow or that heifer is taken outside the camp and slaughtered. And there is some process where the priest shall do something with the blood, and the whole cow will be completely burnt. The ashes of that burnt, the completely burnt cow, the ashes are taken and they are used in the water which is sprinkled upon people to purify them. So what purification is this used for? So we saw in the law that we were studying that if anyone touches a dead body, they shall be unclean. So this water of purification is used to cleanse anyone who has become unclean by touching a dead body. Okay. Now, this is not like other sacrifices. Okay. This is slightly different. And this is a picture of Lord Jesus Christ. Okay. The, the difference is in all the other sacrifices, we see that one person will come and offer his sacrifice for his sin, or offer his sacrifice as a peace offering or a burnt offering. But this sacrifice is for the whole community or whole nation of Israel. Okay, each family does not burn its own red cow. Okay, this heifer is for the whole community of Israel. And this is for purification of the people, and especially when somebody has become unclean by touching the dead body. Okay. Now, this red heifer is a symbol of Jesus Christ. Okay. He was taken outside the camp. Okay. He was sacrificed. Okay. And he was sacrificed for the whole sins of whole mankind. And there are many more similarities which we will not go into, but this red heifer is a symbol of Jesus Christ. Okay. And on a side note, where there has been only 9 red heifers so far after the first, from the first one that Moses sacrificed. From Moses till today, there has been only 9 red heifer sacrifices done for Israel. In the last 2000 years, they have not been able to find a red heifer which will satisfy the conditions of the law. So they have not been able to get the water of purification. because the conditions for the red heifer is like this. It should be without spot or blemish. Okay. So its horns, hooves, even eyelashes has to be red. Okay. If anyone has ridden on the heifer, leaned on it, hung on its tail, or if it was used to cross a river, or somebody placed a rope on its back, or somebody put a cloak on its back, the heifer becomes invalid. If even two black or white hairs are found on the heifer, the animal becomes invalid. So it should be completely red. Not even one or two hair of different color is allowed. So the heifer's physical flawlessness was the symbol of the spiritual perfection of Jesus Christ. Okay. And in the last 2000 years, they have not been able to find a red heifer. So even in order, we speak about Israel building the third temple. They cannot build it without getting a red heifer. Because as we are seeing, the Levites have to be purified with the waters of purification. They don't have the water of purification. So even if they build the temple, they have nobody to serve in it. So they need that red heifer. So if you read about end time prophecies and all there, you will find a lot of news about a red heifer being found in Texas, in Israel, in all these different places. And that is a different topic. Okay, so a qualified red heifer has not been found in Israel for almost 2000 years now. Now, we see that this red heifer is a symbol of Jesus Christ. So, when we come to that, we can see that the first thing they need is cleansing. Cleansing with what? Cleansing with the water of purification. So, without coming to Jesus Christ, without being washed in his blood, there is no way a person can serve the Lord. Okay, so we see two things in the dedications of the Levites. First, they have to come back to a childlike innocence. Second, they should have come to Jesus Christ and be washed in his blood. Okay, without that, there is no service they can offer to God. Now, the last part that I will cover today is in Numbers chapter 8. Again, we are seeing the dedication only. Numbers chapter 8, verse 13. Can we read that?
You shall have the Levites stand before Aaron and his sons and present them as a wave offering to the Lord.
So we saw different offerings in the study of Leviticus: burnt offering, peace offering, wave offering, food offering, okay, sin offering, guilt offering. We saw these different offerings. And there is this one offering, okay, which is called the wave offering. Okay. Now, what this verse is saying, the Levites were offered as a wave offering to the Lord. So what does that mean? How were they offered as a wave offering? Now let's look at one characteristics of this wave offering. In Numbers chapter 6, verse 19 and 20. This is about a Nazarite war, but we can see the characteristic of the wave offering. This is not about what I'm telling is not about the Nazarite. I'm telling about the wave offering. So what is the wave offering? Can we read Numbers chapter 6, verses 19 and 20?
The
And the
priest
priest
shall
shall take the sodden shoulder of the ram, and one unleavened cake out of the basket, and one unleavened wafer, and shall put them upon the hands of the Nazarite after the hair of his separation is shaven, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. This is holy for the priest, which the wave breast and heave shoulder, and after that, the Nazarite may drink the wine.
So when the Nazarite is coming to end his time of service to the Lord, he brings a wave offering. Okay. And the characteristic of this wave offering is what we saw in this, that after it is offered to the Lord, it says they are a holy portion for the priest together with the breast that is waved and the thigh that is contributed. the wave offering becomes a portion of the priest. The wave offering becomes something which the priest can use for their own personal use. Okay, so the wave offering is owned by the priest. It's offered to God, but then the priest uses it for their own personal things. Okay, so for their own personal consumption, usually it's food, so they will use it for themselves. But burnt offerings are not like that. Burnt offering is completely burnt. The priest does not eat of it. Okay, but wave offering, the priest will eat from it. It is his portion. Now Aaron and his sons and the Levites are standing, and it says the Levites became a wave offering. So what it says is the Levites came under the authority of the priests. They came under, they were supposed to be submitted to the priests. So with this, we can understand, the priest had authority over the Levites. And when we serve in the house of God, how important it is to submit to the leadership, to the man of God. Okay. So this is what we understand. The Levites became a wave offering to God, because God, and further down we will read, it says, God gave the Levites as a gift to the priests. So the Levites who served in the temple were under the supervision, under the authority of the priests. And we should remember that as we serve in the church, we come under the authority of our pastor, of our shepherd. Okay, so keeping that submission is extremely important in the eyes of God. So